Good morning, everybody. Let's kick it off here. Come think with me. Here's the question. Why do we become strangers to ourselves? That's going to be the question we're going to try to think through. I've never seen it before. That's kind of the beauty of these workshops, these mental workshops here, is you can come and wrestle with me with this question. We're going to kind of do it together. We're going to work through it. Okay, so let's think about it. I kind of want to think about this one. We're going to hold this one in our mind, okay? I'll say it one more time, and you'll probably hear me repeat it just as a reminder throughout the thing for me and for you guys. And this one's kind of involving identity, so that's kind of the bigger theme kind of behind this one, but it's why do we become strangers to ourselves? So, that is a good question. Let's start picking it apart. Let's think about it, okay? We're going to think about it from multiple different lenses. We're going to come in from different directions, and we're going to try to find some clarity. That's kind of the bigger picture. We're going to try to take it apart. We're going to see what we got here. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start thinking out loud. Let's think. Why do we become strangers to ourselves? Where do we want to go? Where do we want to start on this one? What is it? I guess my first question that come into my mind that I think is worth at least investigating. What does it really mean or feel like to be a stranger? It's kind of like being on the outside, I guess. You don't really, you're not familiar with yourself. You don't understand who you are. I guess that's one way to kind of see it. There's probably multiple interpretations on that. But how, right? That's the question. Why? Why do we become strangers? Well, how might that happen? This is one that I've thought about from other ways, that I think one of the ways that we actually become strangers to ourselves is we get lost in roles. And this one, and as I mentioned, this one is actually behind the scenes, it's about identity, but that's exactly what this is. It's identity's at the core of this. We get stuck. We tend to get stuck as human beings. And you know what? This fits so well here too. I was thinking about this yesterday. We tend to like comfort. We like structure. We like easy. We like something that we can keep kind of returning to. So one of the things that does for us is a label. Okay, if we place a label on ourselves and other things, it makes things easy for us, okay? Imagine if you seen the world without labels on it. You didn't have words to describe things. Okay? That would make things more of an experience, okay? You wouldn't need to describe everything. You wouldn't have a word that popped into your head. I guess that would be, more experiential and more real, I guess. You know what I mean? When you get rid of the words. But I think for people, we like it, right? It's something we can return to. It's something we can call ourselves. It's something we can imagine, think about, describe. It gives us a nice, clean box that we could put on ourselves. Think about like putting your name on a card and then putting it on your chest, okay? That's what people can call you. It makes things easy, right? There's no guessing. So I think what happens is, as far as how we become strangers, is that we're all unique. I know we've all heard this one before, okay? We're all unique. We're all different. And I think that's where we really kind of go astray most often. And I feel like I'm kind of answering this in a way. We'll come back to asking more questions and doing that, but I think that this is a good thread to kind of consider and think about and explore, and that's kind of what we're already doing with it. But we like that, okay? It's easy. It's easier for us to say, I'm a pilot, or to say, I'm a CEO. Okay, it's much harder to describe the uniqueness that we all really have. For me, I have spent nearly decades trying to figure out who I am. As far as without the labels go, like who I am to family, who I am to my friends, who I am to myself, and I can describe myself in a lot of different ways with like different labels, but not one fits me. I mean, yeah, maybe you can call me my name, and maybe that's unique, and then with that, maybe that can have some attachment to other descriptions and ideas. But you know what I mean? I value honesty. These are all values, but they're not who you are. And I think that that's where we get stuck, is that people want a clean label. And I think that that's at least one way that we become strangers to ourselves. I think it's a really easy way. The world kind of trains us and conditions us that way. It makes it easier when we can put labels on people, on things. It just makes things easier. And I have seen that as a pattern consistently. So I think that that fits pretty well here. Let's maybe try a different angle, though. Let's come in from a different side. So why do we become strangers to ourselves? So I would say roles is one thing. Maybe let's think about it from a different angle. Why do we become strangers? Why would we feel at home? Why would we feel ourselves? How would we feel ourselves? I guess answering that would almost eliminate the other side if you think about it. If you can answer why we are ourselves or what ourselves are, and naturally I told you, or I already mentioned that that is a hard question to answer. Who you are, who you really are, without the labels, without the descriptions. So but I guess what makes you unique? What makes you authentic? I think it's maybe the freedom to just express yourself exactly the way you want to express yourself at any given moment. I think that that would be the most real you could ever be. That's hard to do. I mean, we can dance around that for a while, right? You wouldn't want to do that in front of a police officer, right? Maybe you have certain feelings towards the law or something for whatever reason. Maybe you wouldn't want to say that towards a priest, right? You may have some burdens on your soul that, but you see how like these things influence the way that you react. You may want to react a certain way or express yourself a certain way, but you find that restraint, okay? That's what I'm talking about. You can find this anywhere, right? But it's not being real, right? You're restraining yourself from what you really want to do. Now, there comes with some danger too. I think it sounds really pretty and fancy, but what if somebody really makes you angry? Okay, that's when things can go awry, not good. So, sometimes restraint's a good thing. You know what I mean? There's discernment to be had there and knowing when and when not to. I think that that's equally a part of it. But you can see how there's like this delicate balance when you want to express yourself, you want to be authentic and all these things. So let's think here. Have we really answered this well? That's the question I want to ask now. This is for you and me, but this is kind of a good question to ask, generally speaking. We've hit it from, I think, two different aspects or two different perspectives. And I think we've gotten a better idea of what this question's asking and probably a pretty good idea of what it means to kind of be a stranger to ourselves. And maybe we haven't answered that too well. Let's think. Let's just think for a few moments here and see if maybe there's a better question to be asked so that it'll kind of help us go down a different road or thread that might open this one up a little bit more. I think we did a pretty good job though, so we might call it on this one, but let me just think for a few seconds. Does anything else come to mind? Let's repeat the question one last time. Why do we become strangers to ourselves? I could think of maybe some other stuff, but without a question, I'm kind of only answering it. I can't think of the question. There's a question that this would answer, but I can't think of what that question is. But sometimes we become people pleasers. We live for other people. And when, I think that there's a delicate balance there that needs to be had. You can be selfish and selfless. You could be both. I think people You might not be able to be both at the exact same time, except for you as a human being, right? You can be either or at any given time. But when it comes time to when you need to either be selfish or selfless, that's when you got to make a choice. But then after you've made that choice and you move on, right, you don't need to maintain and live inside of that. I mean, I think some of us start becoming selfish multiple times, and then you actually put the label on you, I am selfish. And sometimes we do this without even realizing it, okay? It's just subconsciously, we know that we keep making selfish choices, and then all of a sudden we kind of internally label ourselves at that. So it can get really challenging when this kind of stuff happens. But I think that that's a good way to think about it, a different perspective, maybe not necessarily a question, because I like to ask the question and then kind of follow up with that. There's a question that would give that a good place to be an answer. I'm not sure what that question is off the top of my head. Okay, guys, I think that this was good enough. We wrestled with this one pretty good. I feel better about it coming out of here. I feel like I've got more clarity on it before I came into that question, and that's what this is all about. Learning how to think a little bit better. Okay, guys, that's all I got for you guys on this one. I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you guys there.